Welcome everyone to the July Council meeting. It's great to see so many here. If we could all please stand for the opening prayer and original custodian statement. Almighty God, grant this council wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of this city. Amen. And I also wish to acknowledge the traditional owners in the land on which we stand and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Thank you. Please take a seat. We'll move on to item 2, apologies. I don't think there's any apologies tonight, and I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Jelly, who's joining us virtually this evening. So we'll move on to the confirmation of minutes. So can we have a mover that the minutes of the scheduled meeting for Council held on the 3rd of June 2024 be confirmed? Councillor Paspaliaris. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Arnott. Does anyone wish to speak? We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Ziegler. Passed unanimously. We'll move on to declarations of conflicts of interest. So are there any conflict? Councillor Arnott.
Thanks, Mayor. I have a general conflict of interest for item 7.7.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Any other councillors wish to declare? Very good. We'll move on to item 5, the mayoral presentation. It's been a big month for City Council since our last meeting. It was great to hear from Leila McDougall at the speaker breakfast and her movie Just a Farmer. It was a really fascinating insight to life on the land, and it was great to see it so well attended by so many of our community, and Councillor Taylor made it as well. We also had a new business opening with Pillow Talk, which was great to be involved in their grand opening a couple of Saturdays ago. And this weekend, the big news was the Solstice Search Party, which was really great to see so many out and about. The neons looked great. All of the, the fire effigy. It was a really well-supported event and was really great to see so many out, especially on a cold winter's night. This week we're heading up to ALGA, the Australian Local Government Association, and we've got our motion in for more airport funding coming up this week. So that'll be something good for the next few days. Hopefully that'll be supported. And last week we saw the Stand for Council with elections around the corner, and it was great to see so many, come here to the studio and have a look at and learn a bit about running for council. Thanks to the MAV for putting it on, and all the CEOs, including ours, Mr Mason, for taking the time to give a bit of an insight to how council works. So yeah, that's all the mayoral presentation I've got for this month. We'll move on to public question time. Do we have any questions, Mr Mason?
Through you, Mayor, we have 2 questions for tonight's meeting. The first is from Brandon Cocking, and I've discussed this with Brandon. He's happy if I read or paraphrase his question. So Mr Cocking's question is that if council is serious about affordable housing, why do we penalise property owners who wish to develop with the development overlay contribution costs that apply to property to the west and north of Harrington Road? The question is then, why is the proposed council private company partnership project not having to pay these developer contributions? If council is serious, then the $140,000 per hectare that other developers west and north of Harrington have to find should be applied if there's going to be even competition. And so Mr Cocking then goes on to note that if you kind of multiply the numbers out, that properties to the west and north of Harrington Road are contributing as much as $600,000 per 4 hectares, while the council private company partnership will will have 0 contributions. And so I think the point is Mr Cocking is saying is that in terms of fairness, the developer contributions should be applied equally. So the response from the planning team is that the north of the Merri growth area and north of Dennington growth areas are both covered by separate structure plans that include incorporated development contribution plans. These documents are part of the Warrnambool planning scheme and were developed in conjunction with the landowners when the land was rezoned from farmland to residential land. The developer contribution plans identify enabling infrastructure required for neighbourhoods into the future and set a per hectare contribution rate for developers to fund this infrastructure, including main roads, paths, catchment-wide stormwater drainage and treatment solutions, and community infrastructure. And without these contributions, the funding of significant infrastructure costs would be unfairly distributed, as certain landowners or the first developer would be burdened with the bulk of the cost, which would then likely have knock-on impacts on further development. In relation to the land identified for the Harrington Road project, it's a relatively small area, and the key worker and affordable housing project will be required to fund all of its own internal infrastructure. So effectively, it will be self-funding its own infrastructure. It's expected that when the Sale Yards precinct area is further considered for rezoning, that a developer contribution plan will apply over that area, so that we ensure that infrastructure is adequately provided and funded. Mayor, the second question was from Tammy Good, and so Tammy has also requested that I read her question out. It says, in November 2023, a public forum was held at the council chambers to get ideas and give feedback regarding the foreshore precinct plan. Consultants appointed by Warrnambool City Council conducted the forums, took names and email addresses with a view to collecting opinions and ideas and providing feedback. There was a follow-up meeting with participants in February 2024. At this point in time, there's been no feedback or follow-up either with the consultants or Warrnambool City Council. And my question is anything happening with the foreshore plan, not just Lake Plateau, but the whole precinct, and is the public still being included in the planning? So the good news for Tammy is that since the community workshops occurred late last year, there's been a lot of work behind the scenes by the consultants who have been conducting both technical investigations and stakeholder consultations. And they are we're getting very close to having a draft plan ready. We're expecting that wider community will have another opportunity to engage with the plan and view the draft plan on the 17th of January, and the draft document will be available on Council's websites from the 15th to the 29th of July for feedback and collection. So, put simply, we're getting very close to getting a draft plan available for community.
Thank you, Mr Mason, and thank you, Tammy and Brendan, for those questions. We'll now move on to item 7, the reports, and we'll move on to the first item, 7.1, Key Worker Accommodation and Affordable Housing Project. Mr Mason.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Warrnambool, like many other regional cities, is experiencing housing shortages. This is impacting on the ability to attract key workers, and with particular examples being in education and health sectors. It's also impacting on housing affordability. The Key Worker Housing Project seeks to address this issue by utilising a parcel of council-owned land on the former Sale Yards buffer area. This land has been identified as being, in the master plan, as being suitable for residential land uses. A community housing provider has been selected through an EOI process, and community consultation has been undertaken, which is outlined in the officer's report. The decision for council tonight is whether to proceed to the next step or next stage of this project, which would be or would require seeking a planning approval through the Minister for Planning and seeking funding for the project. It's recommended by officers that council continue with the housing project, and there's a recommendation outlined on page 6 of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Are there any questions about that before we seek a mover? No? Can we have a mover?
Can I just ask a question? Like, I know it's back on my original question.
Tammy,
Am I allowed to ask her a question to the response?
you could have asked for clarification if we were still doing the questions, but we're on to the officers' reports.
Oh, okay. It's just that there's a massive contradiction in the information, like the consultant said that they have included the stakeholders in what they're going to present. That hasn't happened.
It's something, we've moved past the questions, I'm sorry, Tammy, it's probably something to bring up
Point
either.
of order.
Andrew was happy, Andrew will talk to you after the meeting if you want, for some
Okay.
more on that.
Yep.
Yep. Cool. Sorry, do we have a mover? Councillor Arnott?
I would like to move the officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jelly? Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mayor. Warrnambool is facing some serious challenges around supply of key worker and affordable housing. The rental market vacancy rates sit at 0.5 to 0.8%, which is very low compared to a healthy rental market of 4%. The median rental price is $500 per week, and we have 1/3 of renters facing severe rental stress. As of the 25th of June, there were 77 properties listed for rental, only 31 are under the median rental, and 31 were $700 per week or higher. And we must understand, for a healthy rental market, we need approximately 600 dwellings to be made available. Such a tight rental market impacts all industries in the community, particularly health, education and construction. Lack of key worker accommodation is having a negative impact on industries being able to fill positions and thereby not being able to operate to their full potential. And I'm sure there are people in the community who have been unable to find a doctor, had a long wait in the emergency department at the hospital, or struggling to find a tradesperson. So as council, we have been presented with an opportunity to address this problem, albeit in a small way. The project before us is for Haven Homes Safe to build a maximum of 50 homes on land which council own. It will be managed by Community Housing Agency, Haven Homes Safe and its partners, and the land, which is part of the former sale yards, will be leased for a period of 25 years, and it does align with the master plan for the sale yard site. I have read and listened to all comments from the community regarding this project. There has been support as well as opposition. The current infrastructure in the area is adequate to cater for growth. There will need to be some traffic management measures, but they will be incorporated into the final design. There is adequate green space, and there is an internal road infrastructure which is 8 metres wide, wider than some of the surrounding streets. There will be no impact with street parking on Harrington Road. Also, waste collection will not be impacted. There has been some very negative comments regarding the type of people who will be offered these homes. And I must say I've been astounded by some of the assumptions. For example, if you are a low-income worker, you will bring crime and violence to the area. The surrounding community will not feel safe. You will not have pride in your home and it will be unkept. I find that just astounding. There is absolutely no data to support this type of opinion. This project is about providing housing to key workers and affordable homes for low-income workers, a 50-50 split. This is not, and I repeat, not a social housing project. This is a project designed to help our economy, to keep providing those services that are needed by the community and to assist some low-income workers into housing. This is an opportunity that Council simply cannot refuse, and I fully endorse proceeding to the next stage. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with very much of what Councillor Arnold has said. We are in a critical situation with housing across a myriad of categories in the city. Rentals, home owning, a lot of it for a myriad of different people. This key worker and affordable housing project proposal has drawn mixed and varied opinions throughout the city. We need to recognise that this proposal is for our whole city, for all of us. Warrnambool City Council, as the CEO indicated, owns the land on which this project can be sited. Even after much explanation and clarification from Council, it's been disappointing that many people still choose to think the project is social housing. It is not social housing. Warrnambool City Council does not deliver social housing, and 2 years ago we gifted 13 social housing properties that Warrnambool City Council had owned for quite a few years to the Salvation Army to manage and to improve on and grow, and that's what they're doing. They've done precisely so. Council handed over any social housing that we had anything to do with. I've been disappointed with the attitude of some people and the prejudice that has been shown about who will be living in these proposed projects. We are all entitled to a roof over our heads. All of us. And the denigration put forward from some people has been nothing short of disgraceful. We are looking at this project. It will provide affordable accommodation for a variety of people, singles, families and couples. It will also provide key worker housing, and as we've said, for a nurse or a physiotherapist or a teacher that might want to come to our city and can't get accommodation, so they turn around and leave because they can't live here, and it's to our detriment. So it's very important that we can provide some sort of housing for those people. This is why this project is extremely important and will benefit our whole city, and that is why I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Is there any other councillor that wishes to speak? Councillor Ziegler? Oh, or Councillor Koish.
Thank you, Mayor. I may differ with my colleagues who previously spoke before me. This issue of key worker accommodation and affordable housing project proposed by the Warrnambool City Council has been and is still a concern to Dinnington community, and I have my concern too. First, I can understand the idea of building 50 houses on the land leased for 25 years, then packed and go. Where these people go after 25 years? Why not building a good, permanent, and well-designed housing to create a sense of belonging and call it home? The importance of stability means a lot, especially for me. And I'm talking here as a refugee who have been roaming from place to place. I don't want this to happen to people. You just build, and in a couple of years, you move on and move to nowhere. Secondly, the concern raised by the Dinnington community are genuine and need to be taken into consideration. The issue of transport, as an example, how will the key workers and their family access the services? That is not in Dinnington area. This one, among others, concern. I acknowledge the housing crisis and a need for affordable housing, but we have to do it right, and we do it better. We cannot solve a problem with a problem. I am in objection of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Koish. Councillor Ziegler.
Thank you, Mayor. From the outset, consultation in this issue was badly handled. First, when only the houses facing the project were told about it. And second, when Dennington was not included in the focus groups, until Dennington yelled out and said, "We need to hear about it." No recognition that Dennington is a distinct and strong community similar to Allansford and distinct in its own character from Warrnambool. The community has been told that this will happen and that will happen in reference to the infrastructure, to traffic and schools and childcare issues, but not when or how. The submissions from the community have shown that fears still exist surrounding this particular project. Yes, Councillor Arnott, it doesn't have social housing, and we all acknowledge that. It doesn't have social housing. But the fears exist about the quality of the affordable housing, and the fears exist about the values of their own homes. How will that be affected? They've been told by real estate agents, rightly or wrongly, that the value of their home will be affected. I don't know whether it will or not be, but those fears are very real. And I don't think that they've been addressed adequately by council. They still exist and they're very real to the community. It is not good enough to say it won't happen. People who live there won't necessarily be part of the Dennington community. We've been told that, they're there for a short period of time, maybe 2 years or so. In 2 years, they won't become part of the community necessarily, so they won't therefore contribute. And I further endorse the comments of my colleague, Councillor Lacoste. I'll be opposing this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I myself have had an extremely difficult time with my deliberations over this issue. As a councillor, I'm torn between the responsibility of representing a dissatisfied portion of the Dennington community and grapple with the responsibility of supporting what I deem to be a worthwhile project, which could have a far-reaching benefit for the broader community and district. The vast majority of respondents that took the time to contact me and other councillors directly were, in principle, in favour of affordable housing and key worker housing. But beyond that, they were opposed to current states of road infrastructure, the density of such homes, the types of people that may be housed in those homes, and the proximity of this development to their existing homes. There were suggestions around spacing these types of homes throughout the sale yard's land in future, which unfortunately could be 4, 6, 10 years away from realising. In addition, there was also suggestion around other pieces of Crown land or private land that could provide for affordable housing. Affordable housing absolutely excludes social and public housing, and it seems it's often not an appealing prospect for private landowners and developers. In other parts of the world, affordable housing contributions are mandatory. Developers buy land and make development decisions on the assumption that 10, 20, 40 or even 50% of the dwellings will be sold or rented at below market rates. We don't have that mandate here in Victoria yet. I recognise the fact that the private market does not provide much, if any, affordable housing in real terms. But in turn, the responsibility of providing this type of housing then rests with local, state and federal governments. Warrnambool City Council have identified an opportunity to activate a piece of land that it owns for the provision of affordable and key worker housing. Warrnambool City Council does not stand to make anything as such out of this project as far as finance or money is concerned. Its intentions, I feel, are genuine. It's a sincere approach to facilitate more housing for low-income earners and for those needing to move here who are able to contribute to key industries in Warrnambool. Council's role is to provide land for a registered, reputable 45-year-old housing provider to build a number of small homes. Council's role here is to champion affordable and key worker housing delivery. Its role is to try and expedite the affordable and key worker housing delivery process. Within Warrnambool, there are very few affordable houses available and rental vacancies are at an all-time low. In addition to this, the construction industry is facing chronic shortages of skilled workers. There are major cost increases and delays, and so the capacity for building homes has reduced overall. I absolutely acknowledge the concerns of Dennington residents, and I sympathise with them in many ways because this type of project is somewhat of an unknown in Warrnambool. We don't have an affordable and key worker housing precinct that currently exists, but I personally think it has to start somewhere. I firmly believe Haven Home Safe has been in the industry long enough to be able to successfully build and maintain a project like this to a high standard. I also asked them directly at an informal meeting, will you alter the affordable housing component to social housing later if you so want to? As I was very concerned about that aspect or that risk. They unequivocally answered and said, we sign a contract with council, the government, our partners, based on affordable and key worker housing. That's it, no changes. We can't change it as our funding is directly dependent on that agreement and for the length of that agreement. Add to this the critical need for more early childhood educators, nurses, doctors, factory workers, tradesmen and women, hospitality workers, mental health workers, disability support workers, teachers, to help our city keep ticking. After genuinely and seriously considering this proposal from both sides, I came to the conclusion that the worsening crisis around lack of housing, together with Warrnambool's dire need for more affordable and key worker housing in a timely manner, means a proposal like this requires support. It is then up to the Planning Minister to decide on whether such a project has merit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there any other councillor that wishes to speak? I would just like to add that there is an acknowledgement, and even from the consultation, there is a housing issue. And I know it's not council's core business, but we do have an opportunity here. And building a vibrant and diverse community, I think, is a really important part of what we do for our city. And I think this is just another part of that. As some other councillors have alluded to, you know, judging residents or potential residents based on their incomes is not something that I support, and it's not something I think everyone can be a good neighbour and everyone can be a bad neighbour. Your income doesn't dictate that. Property valuations, as Councillor Ziegler said, I struggle to see the logic when this is 25 years of housing that will never enter the open market. So without the extra supply, I struggle to see how it's going to decrease housing values. Also, the area is going to turn into housing around it as it continues to develop. And the different planning pathway that we're using, I don't think makes a lot of difference because we're going to get houses on the ground quicker and faster. And as Councillor Paspaliaris has said, we're using a trusted housing provider, Haven Safe Homes, who I'm sure will do an excellent job if this is approved by the Minister. Looking at some of the location things that we have been sent, and there were many different locations that have been listed for council to look at, but none ticked all the boxes of being council-owned with easy access to services. And being in a housing estate, this will help drive infrastructure upgrades for that region as there's more and more houses and more usage there. Growth is the key to getting those upgrades. There will be some with this project, but there will be more as the precinct continues to grow. And I don't agree with Councillor Koish. It's for solving a problem with a problem. We're supplying housing, and we are one community. We're not Dennington, Allansford, Woodford, Bushfield. We are Warrnambool, and together we work together and we support each other. With council, we're effectively losing the ability to subdivide this land or derive any income off it for the next 25 years in order to be able to provide housing for businesses and of key worker and affordable housing. So, and just on the houses as well, and looking at the builds, there are other form flow houses that are dotted not just throughout Warrnambool in some of our best estates, there are also others dotted in other cities that surround here as well. Just because they're modular homes doesn't make them any less of a home. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to add anything to close?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mayor Blaine. I just wish to endorse particularly Councillor Jolly our Mayor and Councillor Paspaliaris their thoughts on this project. It is a really, really important project. It is something that we need to do, and we need to get this ticking along if possible. As our Mayor has said, this is not about Dennington. This is about the whole of Warrnambool. This is about finding a solution for two major problems: key worker housing and affordable housing. So once again, I'm very happy to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Arnott, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Paspaliaris, Councillor Jelly, Councillor Blaine. All those against? Councillor Ziegler, Councillor Koish. The motion is carried 5-2. Item 7.2, Fair Access and Use Policy 2024. Mr Mason.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. The Fair Access and Use Policy seeks to improve access and use of council recreation and sporting facilities in Warrnambool. The policy is good practice, but will also mean that council continues to be eligible for recreation funding from Sport and Rec Victoria, which will be a requirement for that funding stream. So the recommendation is that council adopt the attached policy.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Any questions? May I have a mover? Councillor Arnott.
I would like to move that Council adopt the Fair Access and Use Policy 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor. Women and girls currently do not have equal access to community sport and recreation opportunities. This policy aims to bring equality for women and girls to be able to participate in all aspects of community sport, including as a player, coach, administrator, official, volunteer and spectator. I think this is an extremely important document, and along with an action plan, this will help address known barriers experienced by women and girls, so I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, Mayor, I think that it's just common sense, and as it says, it's fair access and use. So it's easy to support that a motion that progressively builds capacity and capabilities for women and gender in sport. Not an issue for me. I think it just should go ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is a very important thing to get done. It will, once adopted, it will allow us to continue to apply for government funding through the state government, to be able to update and supply new and appropriate access for women and girls in the community at sports facilities. Some of our sports facilities are a bit older and the girls get changed in a room and don't have access to proper toilets and showers and things like that. So this will allow that to grow and be able to, for us to work through and rectify as time goes by. So this is a great outcome to have this done.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Blaine. Gender equitable access and use policies and processes is the key driver for procedural and cultural change to ensure the full benefits of sport and recreation are available to all. This policy is designed to comply with the Gender Equality Act 2020, and the Warrnambool City Council acknowledges the disadvantaged position some individuals have had in sport and recreation sector because of their gender. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any other councillor wish to speak? And I'd just like to add, having equal access to sport is so critical, and it's great to see this policy. It's also an important plan and important for future funding rounds as we continue to improve and upgrade the many different sporting facilities that council manage across the city. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to add anything to close?
No, I won't. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Very good. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item 7.3, the volunteer policy 2024-2028. Mr Mason.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, this is a great policy. Currently, over 300 volunteers are registered with Council to provide a wide range of really vital services for our community. Council officers have reviewed and updated the existing volunteer policy, and it's been through a consultation process with volunteers, and it is recommended that the new policy be adopted.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just move one, that Council adopts the volunteer policy 2024-2028, and two, that Council revokes the volunteer policy 2011.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you. The last review of the volunteer policy was undertaken in 2011, so obviously it needs a bit of tweaking and changing, and the changes represented in the new policy reflect the national standards for volunteer involvement. The eligibility is clearly defined, and practical elements have now been removed and included as reference links. Volunteers are the backbone of any community, and currently Council has over 300 volunteers registered, and they're engaged across 14 programs and services of Council. They're a huge benefit to the community, and I'm very pleased to endorse this new policy.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Blaine. Last reviewed in 2011, Council's volunteer policy is the guiding document that outlines the principles to engage volunteers in Council services and programs. Council values the work of volunteers and is committed to providing an inclusive, valuable and enjoyable volunteering experience for all, enriching our community that make Warrnambool a vibrant and desirable place to live. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's good that we're updating it. It basically means that we've reviewed it and found it to be wanting. It's incredibly important that volunteers are supported and given all the positives, given that governments at all levels are not able to provide the services that we enjoy. Volunteers actually do most of the work in our community in terms of the background in all of our activities, all the ones that Council runs, for example, the 14 that have been mentioned. I myself have been involved this past 3 months with 100 volunteers in order for us to put on a theatrical performance for primary school aged children. I know the value of volunteers. I think we need to make sure that we support them in every possible way, and this is another way to make sure that it's the strength of our volunteer contribution goes on.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Any other councillor wish to speak? I'd just like to add that it's a really important policy for the wellbeing of our volunteers, and I'd like to thank all of our volunteers for all the work they do, and if anyone does have a bit of spare time or want to give back to their community, please take the time to volunteer if it's with Council or any other organisation within our city. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to add anything to close?
No, thank you.
All right, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. We'll move on now to item 7.4, S6, Instrument of Delegation. Mr Mason.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. The S6 Instrument of Delegation allows council officers to perform a wide range of activities under different pieces of legislation on behalf of council. It is recommended that council adopt the updated S6 Instrument of Delegation as set out in the five-point recommendation before you on page 28.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Any questions? Can we have a mover? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, Mayor, I'll move that the officer's recommendations be accepted.
Be accepted, beautiful. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris, Councillor Ziegler.
I have no comment to make. I think it's a housekeeping issue.
Councillor Paspaliaris.
Yep, fairly procedural, thank you.
The only thing I will add is the biggest change is actually there's a change in the in some of the roles, and it reflects a few of the position changes within the organisation. Sorry, do the other councillor wish to speak? We'll put the motion to the vote then. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. We'll now move on to 7.5, the Community Satisfaction Survey 2024. Mr Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. The Community Satisfaction Survey is conducted over February and March and is a requirement of the state government. This year's results are very pleasing. We've seen improved results across most areas, and this is against a statewide trend. And in particular, I would call out that overall performance has increased by 3 points and is now higher than the regional cities and statewide average. And council direction has improved by 6 points and is now significantly better than the benchmark averages. So these are great results. I would like to thank and acknowledge council's many staff who are at the coalface in doing the delivery of council services. I think as a group, and we should be proud of these results, and I would also like to say that we should be thanking our staff for these great results. So the recommendation before council is before you on page 33, which is really that you note the results and that we make the results available on our website.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Are there any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor.
I would like to move that council notes the 2024 Community Satisfaction Survey and places the full survey results on the council website as per the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Arnott. Councillor Taylor.
This is a very pleasing result overall, inasmuch as council's overall performance score increased by 3 points on the 2023 score to 55, which is above the statewide average score of 54. Council officers and staff are to be congratulated on their good, excellent work, which has bucked the statewide trend for lower overall performance index scores. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Arnott.
Yes, a very pleasing result, and obviously we do have to thank the exec team, our CEO, even ourselves, our good direction, and all council workers. I mean, it's great to see that we have improved this much. I suppose the challenge going forward for us all now is to maintain those standards. We've set a pretty high benchmark and keep listening to what the community wants. So well done, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Any other councillor wish? Councillor Jelly. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, look, this is a great result. It's stepped up from last year, and it just shows the working together with our council staff, the executive team and councillors that we've made improvement. We have taken on any feedback we've been given, and we're focused on the future, and it just shows that this survey is a great outcome, but we must continue to strive to improve as well for the community. So congratulations everyone on this outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, I'd like to endorse the comments of my fellow councillors who have congratulated the work of council staff for this pleasing result. I think it's terrific that they get some recognition, and I'd like to thank them for their efforts.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Akush.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this report is very impressive and good to see the progress our city is going through, and I will add sincerely my congratulations, as my colleague alluded to congratulate the staff and management of Warrnambool City Council. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Koish. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just add that it was interesting to note that the survey asked residents for the best ways for council to inform them about council news and events, and receiving a newsletter in the mail was the preferred means of communication for Warrnambool residents and statewide, closely followed by an emailed newsletter. I'd just like to reiterate the point that council has recently started an e-newsletter and will continue to promote and build a subscriber list. There's a huge cost in providing communication by mail, so I think slowly moving to digital is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. And I'd just like to add, it is a really good result, and it is a congratulations to all the staff. And it is against a statewide trend, especially coming towards the end of an election cycle. We do have to keep working though, especially on our advocacy, which these results were taken in February, March, and we've really sort of been stepping up, and we've been at State Parliament. We're making sure that our voice has been heard, but it is something that Council needs to continue to work on. And it's great to see, as everyone's mentioned, the Council direction improving. And the improvement in services really shows how important council services are to the community and how well they're actually valued by everyone who gave feedback to this survey. So it's a good result, but we'll keep working, and hopefully we can be above the statewide, the state averages in everything moving forward. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to add anything to close?
No, thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Item 7.6, North of the Marai DCP Planning Scheme Amendment. Mr Mason.
Thank you. And as I outlined in my question, in public question time, developer contribution plans are used to fund infrastructure in greenfields areas that will be required by communities. After reviewing the north of the Marai DCP, it was found that the underground high voltage power line component was both technically difficult and very cost prohibitive. It's recommended, therefore, that council prepare a planning scheme amendment to change the DCP to allow the power line to be overhead, as outlined in the recommendation. This means that it will both be possible to do technically, but also address and contribute to housing affordability. So a copy of the recommendation is before you in 4 points.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Arnott.
I would like to move the officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Arnott.
Yes, I think this is nearly like another piece of housekeeping, and it certainly will save council some money. The idea of power lines going underground is very appealing, but the cost is just too extravagant. $11 million to put them underground compared to realigning them overhead, $2 million. So there's a significant saving to be made. The change to this policy, it is necessary to support further development and delivery of housing to the north of the Marai River growth area, and it will result in reduced cost to council, so happy to support. Thank you. Thank you,
Councillor Arnott. Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just add that as per Councillor Arnott, an $11 million cost to council to underground the high voltage power lines is just an exorbitant amount of money, that the difference would just go to so many other important services and pieces of infrastructure. So I agree that we should endorse the officer's recommendation in the $2 million overhead power lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Jelly.
Thank you. Again, acknowledge what my fellow councillors have just said, and it's very important to be able to do this, the cost saving and moving forward with it, because it's the upgrade of Wollaston Road, very important, as we move forward, so it will allow this to progress, which is a huge growth area out there. So this is great that we can put this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, Mayor, as desirable as underground wiring is, I really cannot reconcile the fact that it's $11 million worth. And I think that given that that would fall to council to find, it's just out of the question.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. I'd just like to add too that moving forward, there will be challenges with our developments going forward. We need development, especially for more housing, as we were talking about earlier, and development needs services, but the DCP, the Developers Contribution Plans, need to be able to service this, or the state needs to be able to step up because they have the ability to fund and make these things work. As a council, we need support to be able, we need housing and we need enabling infrastructure. And the ability for council and developers to predict a cost of infrastructure, which in this case was nearly 15 years ago, is a challenge which there will be shortfalls, especially when we've been through such a high inflationary environment. And I don't see this as something that land buyers should be having to pay. I think there is a role for the state, especially looking across the country of us being in a housing crisis. There needs to be more support in order to be able to enable these kind of developments. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to add anything to close?
No, thank you.
All right, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Councillor Arnott, you've declared a conflict on 7.7. If you could please leave. Yeah. All right, we will proceed with item 7.7, Planning Scheme Amendment C213 WARR, Riverview Terrace rezoning and surrounds, submissions received post-exhibition. Mr Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. This report deals with Amendment C213, which seeks to rezone land in the Riverview Terrace area to a residential zone. Following public exhibition, council received 4 submissions. Given that the submissions can't be resolved, it's recommended that council request the planning minister to appoint a panel to consider this matter. Once the panel has handed down a report, it will be brought back to council. So recommendation is before you in 5 parts.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Are there any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Blaine. I'd like to move a motion that Council 1 receives and considers all submissions made to Amendment C13 Warrnambool to the Warrnambool Planning Scheme. Item 2 endorses the officer response to issues raised by submissions outlined in Attachment 1 as the basis for Council's submission to the Independent Planning Panel. Item 3 requests that the Minister for Planning appoint an independent planning panel to review submissions received to Amendment C213 WARR in accordance with Part 8 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Item 4 refers all submissions to the independent planning panel to be appointed by the Minister for Planning. Finally, item 5, write to all these submitters informing them of the Council's decision as per the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Taylor.
This amendment proposes to correct an anomalous zone that currently applies to subject sites and is recommended that the amendment to be progressed to the next step in the planning amendment process, and that the submissions be referred to an independent planning panel for further consideration. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Paspaliaris.
I just add that I support this issue going to an independent planning panel for further decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Any other councillor wish to speak? No, I'd just like to add that it's mainly fixing a planning anomaly for the surrounding areas around it, and I'm happy to see it put to a panel to come back to council at a later date. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to add anything to close?
No, thank you, Mayor Blaine.
All right, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. And Mr Plozza, can you please grab Councillor Arnott? Was passed unanimously. All right, we'll move on to item 7.8 now. Councillor Arnott's back in the room. Planning application PP 2023-0015 30 Kruger Street, Warrnambool. Mr Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. This report recommends that Council issue a notice of decision to issue a permit for 2 additional dwellings at 30 Kruger Street in Warrnambool. Planning officers have assessed the application and found it to be generally in accordance with the planning scheme. A detailed recommendation containing a draft planning permit is before Council on page 48.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Are there any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move a motion that I have circulated amongst councillors. This is a motion to issue a notice of refusal to grant a permit for the following reasons. 1, the scale and density of the development does not respect the existing neighbourhood character of the area. 2, the development would unreasonably impact the amenity of residents within Kruger Street through the generation of additional traffic. And 3, the proposal fails to provide an appropriate landscape outcome. 4, it unreasonably impacts the amenity usability of the area of secluded private open space. And 5, the proposal fails to provide convenient parking for residents and visitors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. This proposal, a different version of this proposal went to Council some years ago. It was supported by Council at the time, but it went further and was overturned by tribunal. I think that considering the precinct that this property lies within, it's not in keeping with the local neighbourhood character. I have visited this street to keep looking and reassessing with this issue coming up, or this item coming up, for some time now, and it is a very narrow one-way side street. It has limited on-street parking just to one side. It is within a very busy hospital district. I think that the time for this type of development has been and gone, in the sense that I personally feel that with the increasing development of the hospital, the increasing traffic, the busyness, the parking issues that already exist, I feel that this is not an ideal development for this area. I think that the general nature of what already exists in the street, that this is very different to what already exists. There are some houses or dwellings rather that face the street, and then from what I can see, there is only a single dwelling to the rear of some of the front-facing properties, or there is a single-storey couple of units at the rear. So I understand that this particular proposal has come back in terms of being modified, but I firmly believe that it's not in keeping with the local neighbourhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. For all the reasons that Councillor Paspaliaris has mentioned, I'll support her alternative motion, particularly because that this development does not respect the existing neighbourhood character. It would be an incredibly heavy imposition on the existing residents, and it's basically a similar situation to the one we had with the Preston Street development. It's just not right to impose these kind of intense developments on people who already live there.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Are there any other? Councillor Jelly?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this 30 Kruger Street is in a very narrow street, one-way street, as Councillor Pasparo said, in the hospital precinct. The street is difficult to negotiate with parking and residents backing or driving in and out of their driveways. I feel that the scale and density of this proposal does not align with the existing neighbourhood character, and I don't think we should just agree to infill of someone's backyard for the sake of getting property, another building in there. That doesn't fit, and especially because they're double-storey proposal with this. It's inappropriate for this site. The proposed development will impact the current residents with additional traffic and parking issues in an already congested street. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Any other? Councillor Arnott?
I'll just wish to further endorse what my fellow councillors have said. It is one of those decisions that I don't think until you actually see the street and visualise the property, you really understand the impact that extra buildings is going to perhaps cause. I do acknowledge that we do need housing. I have stated that before. Whether this is the right type of development for that area, I'm unsure. So when I'm feeling unsure about this, I'm going to accept the alternate motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Blaine. I myself, along with other fellow councillors, have travelled down Kruger Street to see the site for this planning application. I was dismayed as to how narrow the street is and agree with the objectors that building traffic will cause utter chaos in this narrow street. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are there any other councillors with Councillor Coish?
Thank you, Mayor Blaine. Yeah, I agree with my colleagues, what they just said about 30 Kruger Street. I visited myself, I went there and I saw a very narrow street, and one can imagine how to put more residents, which means more cars and more other things. So I'm concerned of safety of people there. So I don't think this is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coish. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to add anything to close?
No, thank you.
All right, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item 7.9, Warrnambool Futures Project Tender Response. Mr Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. As an ex-planner, I'm quite excited about this project. It's that council. It's recommended that council award the contract to SGS to prepare the Warrnambool Futures Blueprint study or strategy. This important document will guide the future development and direction for Warrnambool from a land use planning perspective. It is a big piece of work and will take some time because we have to make sure that we get all of the moving parts right and that we're adequately planning for and catering for future growth. But I think it is a very exciting piece of work and the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Are there any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Arnott.
I would like to move the motion that the council award the tender for contract 2024019 Warrnambool Futures 2040 and Beyond Blueprint to a sustainable city to SGS Economics and Planning Proprietary Limited for an amount of $480,000 exclusive of GST, and 2, authorise the CEO to sign, seal and vary the contract as required.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Arnott.
As the CEO has said, this is an exciting piece of work because it really will steer Warrnambool and what Warrnambool will become well into the future. The last citywide land use strategy was developed in 2004, so it is really time that that is looked at again. Warrnambool is a growing population and we will need to be have some well-planned housing infrastructure and employment into the future, and we also need to incorporate climate-wise and climate-resilient response. It is a large piece of work, but I'm happy to support this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councillor Arnott alluded to, the last strategy was developed quite some time ago, so it's certainly timely to have this begin. It is a generational type strategy where it will look forward to the next 10, 20 years or more of the city's designated residential growth areas. The tender that provided the most value for money was from SGS Economics and Planning, and this is accounted for within the planning budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there any other councillor that wish to speak? I'd just like to add too that moving on from, as Councillor Arnott said, 2004 and looking past 2040 and guiding our future growth, this is going to be a really important piece of work at looking at how our city grows and what it's going to look like and densities and, you know, how, and it really can change the face of what our city is, not just for our generation, but as Councillor Paspaliaris said, future generations as well. So I think it's a really good piece of work that I'm really looking forward to seeing how it will progress. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to add anything to close?
No, thank you, Mayor.
We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to item 7.10. Warrnambool Animal Shelter Fees and Charges 2024-25. Mr Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. So as of today, Warrnambool City Council has taken over the operation of the animal shelter, and I was very pleased today to go out to the shelter and greet the staff out there and welcome them to our wonderful organisation. I'd also just like to acknowledge that the Director of City Infrastructure, Mr Lee, and his team have done a power of work to ensure that we have a really smooth transition for the animal shelter coming across to council operations. All that being said, that's not the purpose of this report, but one of the consequences of taking over the animal shelter is that we need to set fees and charges, and what we have done is set those fees, or recommend that we set those fees and charges broadly in a line with the previous operation under the RSPCA, and so it's recommended that council go ahead and approve the fees and charges.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Any questions? Councillor Ziegler.
One question with regard to the surrender fee. I note that it says up to 55 or up to 45. How is that determined ultimately?
Mr Mason.
I'm going to look at my my director here, Mr Lee. Can you?
Through this, the fees that stay up to are determined by the assessment that's done by the animal handlers and the shelter supervisor upon entry.
And what sort of criteria would they be using?
Would be health and whether or not there's any options to rehome, and those that are able to be rehomed, obviously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Do we have no other questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Blaine. I'd like to move a motion that council approve the fees and charges for the animal shelter as set out in the report as per the officer's recommendation be accepted.
Thank you,
Mayor Blain.
Councillor Taylor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Taylor.
Originally operated under contract by the Royal Society for the Protection of Cruelty to Animals for over the past 20 years, the contract agreement ceases on the 30th of June 2024 and the animal shelter facility will now be managed by council from today. The fees and charges outlined in this report will assist the ongoing care and medical needs of animals that are accepted to the shelter and contribute to the sustainable operations of the facility. Thank you, Mayor Blain.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just add that council officers have indicated to us that they've had a really good look at fees within the animal shelter and just really tried to streamline some of the individual costs and I guess just make it a bit more practical and common sense approach to listings of fees. So I'm quite happy that they've sort of had a really broad look over things and have come to this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Any other councillor wish to speak? I'd just like to add to it is a bit of a change moving from the RSPCA to Warrnambool City Council, but council is committed to running in the same spirit of the RSPCA, and that goes across the care and welfare of all of our animals, not just from the fees, and also ensuring that we don't really we really try not to euthanise animals. That is a really last resort, and that's something that we're going to continue on. None of that is going to change with the operation of the sale yards at this point in time. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to add anything to close?
No, thank you, Mayor Blain.
All right, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item 7.11. Contract 2024-025, provision of cleaning services for public conveniences and barbecues. Mr Mason.
Mayor, this report recommends that council award a contract for cleaning of public conveniences and barbecues. It's largely a procedural matter, but I would note that there has been some necessary increase in the scope of cleaning frequency or how often we clean. Regularity. And I would also note that the contract has had to be extended to cover some new facilities. So the recommendation is before you in 4 parts.
Thank you, Mr Mason. Are there any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, Mayor, I'll move that the officer's recommendations be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Arnott. Councillor Ziegler.
No comment to make. I think, again, this is a procedural housekeeping matter. Happy for it to go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Well, it's quite a bit of cleaning. I must admit I wouldn't like to be doing it. The contract is for cleaning of 31 toilet blocks, 32 barbecues and the associated tables and shelters with them and 1 public notice board. So, like I said, not something I'd like to be doing, so I'm happy to award that cleaning contract to Mackin Proprietary Limited in a lump sum. Yep.
Councillor Jelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, agreed. It's a lot of cleaning to do, Councillor Arnott. You and I would not want to do it together. But it's an important service because not only for our local community, but for visitors, tourists that come here to the city, we want to make sure everything's clean, tidy, looked after, and that it's done properly. So I think this is a great outcome awarding this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Any other councillors? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. Initially, when I looked at the cost, I thought it was quite extravagant. However, when you look at what is being cleaned, how much is being cleaned, how often it's being cleaned, and the personnel required to complete all of that, it then, once you sort of calculate all of that, it does make a lot of sense as to how that figure comes to be. With that said, I'd be happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Any other councillor wish to speak? We do know how much the public do value all our public amenities, and it is really important they're clean and safe for everyone to use. And this is a part of the service that we do, not just for people, not just for the community that lives here, but everyone that comes to visit. And it is a really critical service that we do provide, and I think it's really, really good. We've found a good contractor to do it. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to add anything to close?
Just, Mayor, that it is a procedural matter, but the standards we've enjoyed to this point with the cleanliness of our facilities has to be acknowledged, and this particular item ensures that it will continue so.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. With no other councillors, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Item 7.12, Advisory Committee Reports. Mr Mason?
Through you, Mayor, just a procedural matter. The Airport Reference Group and Environmental Sustainability Group minutes are there for adoption.
Any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Blaine. I'd like to move that the minutes of the Warrnambool Airport Reference Group meeting held on the 13th of May 2024 and the minutes of the Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee held on the 30th of May 2024 be received. Thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Arnott. Councillor Taylor?
No, thank you, Mayor Blaine.
Councillor Arnott?
No, thank
All right,
you.
no other councillor wishes to speak. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Item 7.13, the informal meetings of council. So we've got the minutes there for them. Were there any questions or anything on them? Do we have a mover? Councillor Ziegler?
Yes, Mayor, I'll move that the record of the informal meetings of council held on the 11th, 17th and 24th of June 2024 be received.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Do any councillors wish to speak on these? We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Item 7.14, Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report. It's there on page 68. Did anyone have any questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Blaine. I'd like to move that the Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report be received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Does anyone wish to speak? All right, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Item 8, notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion, Mr Mason?
No notices of motion have been submitted.
Item 9, general business. Did anyone have any general business they wish to raise this evening? No? All right, item 10, there were no items of urgent business either?
No.
All right, we'll move on to item 11, close of the meeting. We'll see everyone next month in August. Thanks all for coming out in the middle of winter.